Hello everyone, welcome back to another Go opening video. Today I would like to present you a professional game between the Chinese female professional player Yu Zhiying against the Korean female player Choi John. So Yu Zhiying is currently one of the best female Go players in China, and Choi John is currently the #1 female player in the world. So both players definitely are on the top. So let's see how this game does. So Yu Jing is playing as black. The fifth move, Yu Jing approaches, white kosumis, and then black approaches from the other side. So professional players like to play very active. I personally would have just played the 2-space extension, which is totally fine. But professional players like to take initiatives and not just respond to everything that the opponent does. So black approaches, and now white decided pincer from behind. White can also choose the very old and solid variation like this. This is perfectly fine. So this would be more territory focused as white. Instead, Choi John's idea was to not only attack black, but also focus on expanding herself. So it's a move that does two things at the same time. It's a very good move. So at this point in this sort of lecture, I want to illustrate you how a professional player has dealt with the pincer. So pincer is not something that I have covered a lot, or I have not covered at all in my Joseki lecture. So I hope to put these pincers into context and we can learn together how a professional player dealt with pincers. Black attaches and white harnesses, black pulls back and white makes the tiger's mouth. This is the textbook variation. So from this point on, it could get a little bit awkward for black because black does not have an obvious base. And if black just runs, which is what I would have done, and white can follow up by getting more territory under. So if you keep pushing, white's gonna get more territory. And then this is usually how I play as black. I usually give white some territory and then start a counterattack here, which is an okay idea, right? It's playable as black. But today I want to illustrate you how Yu Zhiying has dealt with it in a simpler fashion, and it's a lot easier to understand. So instead of fighting, Yu Zhiying decided to just poke here. White obviously has to follow up with the elephant eye. And the next move, Yu Zhiying decided to hop here. The variation I was showing is this variation. It doesn't really work because white can push and then push over here. This is like a little trap that black is setting up. So it looks like black has a lot of cutting point, but white can only cut from here. White can only cut from under. This cut would lead to game over so white would be knocked out from here. So black's an Atari from behind. White cannot connect. White has to capture, and then black double Ataris. White connects, and then black takes. And that's game over because black gets everything and white only has this. So that's a little trap, but the problem is when a white cut over here, black now has a double Atari. Black cannot fill in here anymore. That's why he has to connect, and then white extends out. Black is left with 2 cutting points, and white has a lot of territory here, especially with the suiciding stone at f17. So that's how you would counter this trick, right? This is not very commonly played trick because it's not tricky at all. Instead, the correct move is what Yu Zhiying has played in the actual game. That is to hop over here. White has to respond by blocking, and then black harness. this is setting a little trap. So if white cuts, black can Atari and then push again. And then this corner is in some sort of trouble. So black can just block over here or something. And this is a bad outcome for white because these guys are not completely captured yet. So white cannot cut here because it's a trap. White's correct move is what Chojan has played in the actual game. And now black blocks over here. So you might have the intention to play this double honey, which is an intuition that a lot of single digit Q or even down level players have. The problem with this move is that locally it's fine for black, but what white can do is just to patiently extend. Now this move is helping white in closing a large amount of territory, but this honey leaves a weakness behind. So this exchange is not a great exchange for black, basically. And a lot of times when you encounter your opponent's double honey, the first thing you can think about is just to patiently extend. It's not to Atari at any place. You can just focus on what's important and let your opponent floating in the air. So in the actual game, black blocked here, enclosing the base. That's a very good move. And then white follows up with an excellent move that makes white more solid. For the same reason, black does not want honey, so he decided to just extend and leave no weakness. White pushes up and then black extend once again. Now, because the black's really strong here, this group needs to be dealt with right now. So white adds another move to completely secure herself. Black turns and then white hops out. Black pushes again, forcing, there's a cutting point here, so white has to protect it. So this pretty much ends the very early game for this part of the board. So from this example, we can see how black has used a very simple strategy. Poke here first, and then do a jump combination. And then after a few exchanges, she gave up some territory for the influence. And now this influence is working closely with her previous choice of the double star and is building a big moya. Next move, you decided to hop back, right? This is always a big move that black was missing this move. And now we can see Chojan decided to make a split. So the split is an excellent move that I want to spend a little bit of time talk about. Obviously, there's a lot of correct moves, such as the 3-3 invasion. The problem with the 3-3 invasion is black can just play out the most common Joseki, and then black can just connect herself over here. And now we have a Sanrensei with a wall here and with another wall here. So if white keeps expanding, then black can also expand, and this becomes a very large moyo that white has to deal with. White has to invade over here. I'm not saying this is not playable, but the idea for Chojan is to not go into that direction. Similarly, white can approach here, but black is also going to pincer. When we play out this Joseki, even if black adds another move, we can see it's more or less the same thing. White still has to deal with a very scary moyo. That's why what we see in the actual game is that white decided to just split and then make sure that there's no moyo here. That's a very simple and clear strategy because Chojan is a very good endgame player, so she doesn't really want to go into any sort of moyo fight, and that's a decision that you make very early in the game to set the framework for this game. So we'll look at a few more moves, and then we can all of a sudden realize that the game is more or less going into what Chojan was expecting. That is, white was able to settle over here. So this corner got cut off. It has some territory, but it's kind of split up. And now what Chojan has to worry about is to invade an area like this. So that at this point, the game is just more or less equal. Basically, black still has some potential to build here. Black has a corner here. And there's some insecurities for this group still, because white needs to add another move over here. So the next move, white could have played this one. In the actual game, she played a more aggressive way of fixing, but the idea is the same. White needs to add another move over here. So a very brief presentation of this game. I think two main ideas. The one is how we deal with pincer. We learned a very new way in AI. I think, well, it has to be an AI verified way of dealing with pincer. So let's just recap this, because I think I personally learned a lot about this variation, right? Before it was like this. It's kind of awkward for black at this point, because this group is very insecure. But then after this exchange, then we hop over here, forcing white to exchange, and then block after this exchange, and then we hop up, we extend up. After some exchange, black was able to give some territory to white, and then secure herself. There's some ice space over here and here already, and there's a strong influence towards the center. So if you like influence, and if you don't want to go into an early fight, right, the variation that I showed that I like to play a lot is to hop, okay, push once, and then counter attack. And when white hops out, I make a 2-space extension, and then having my group hanging over here. This is okay, but this is a risky variation to take. So if you don't want that option, or if I don't want an option, I learned that I can actually just play out this very flexible variation to deal with the pincer. The other thing that I've learned was at the point where we have a giant moyo. It's kind of like my invader idea. That's to split the moyo at the very start to prevent a large moyo from forming. That's also something that I learned, especially for a very strong player like Choi, I guess, Choi John. She likes to go into the end game, and that's the decision that she makes, right? She doesn't want to go into an early fight. I'm not saying she's not good at fighting. She's excellent at fighting, but she has a very strong confidence on her end game and late game. So that's why she decided to just split everything up and then go towards the end game, and she has the confidence to win. So that's a variation that you take if you're that type of player. So we see a lot of decision making in this game from both players that demonstrate a lot of strength, a lot of patience as well. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next one.